The absolute state of this country. The past few weeks have really thrown into sharp relief just how messed up and broken this country really is. This won't be like my usual videos, I'm too angry for that. This won't be a deep dive into one particular story where I take my time and try to analyse it from all sides before presenting my thoughts on it. No, this video will not be like that. In fact, I may even need to get out the bleep button to stay on YouTube's good side here. So what has gotten me so angry? Take your pick. The cost of living, the dismal treatment of the childcare sector, the increase in violent crime, the homeless crisis getting worse, Dara O'Brien adding 100k to the price of rundown and derelict houses while advertising a few of them, An Taoiseach being more concerned with bloody songs than the real problems in this country, An Taoiseach defending the outrageous and divisive plan to overhaul disability payments into 3 categories based on how sick the government think you are, by making even more crass and despicable comments in Dáil Éireann that only seek to highlight just how much he hates anyone worse off than himself. Or how about Temple Street? How about those poor children in need of life-changing spinal surgeries who were instead experimented on by a doctor who thought putting cheap springs into a child was worth a shot? How about the fact that this was raised by whistleblowers and roundly ignored until the ditch forced their hand? How about the fact that Stephen fucking Donnelly has gone AWOL again despite this horrendous child abuse at the hands of the HSE? Are you angry yet? If not, you should be. Add all of this up and it is absolutely outrageous and appalling. We have petrol and diesel hurtling towards €2 a litre in a cost of living crisis, while home heating oil also skyrockets. Just another example of the government's disdain for the poor or less well off. Those who can't afford that shiny new electric vehicle or the retrofitting of their energy inefficient home are just heaped with more misery and more worries as more of their income gets drained for the benefit of energy companies who are still recording record profits. Fuck the little people, sure. We had preschool and childcare operators protesting this past week at the lack of funding and investment in the sector. More childcare personnel are finding it harder and harder to make ends meet on a salary that is being decimated by high rents, high mortgage rates, and the aforementioned cost of living. Childcare operators are struggling to pay the bills and the wages that they need to afford. More proof that this is no country for young people. Children just cast aside because there's no money to be made from public services and the social good. We have had even more problems in the realm of justice. Rank and file members of An Garda Síochána overwhelmingly voted no confidence in Commissioner Drew Harris, yet he is still there. And we have seen yet more assaults and violent knife crime, perhaps most notably the knife attack at Dublin Airport. Helen McEntee is letting this spiral out of control and instead is more focused on speech than actions. The party of law and order failing miserably, but, say it with me now, zero accountability. Ireland's fucking motto at this stage. Then we also have the ever-present housing and homeless crisis, records constantly being broken. And what do we hear from Minister for Homelessness Dara O'Brien? Sure, buy a fixer-upper and we'll give you 100k to do it up. Thanks, Dara, you've just helped those hoarding derelict properties to add 100k to the value of the property. Well done, take a bow. Utter incompetence. Nothing to help the ordinary renter, nothing to help the homeless. Nope. But hey, the small landlords will get a tax break in the budget, the vulture funds and foreign investors will be allowed to continue buying up property unabated, and Airbnb will remain unregulated and running riot. That'll help those living in tents to get a home. Oh, and those grants to refurbish derelict properties? He only went and pimped out the property section of the Irish Independent to tell us about it. An article, by the way, that is behind a paywall. The fucking sickening irony. Shameful, as usual. Then we have An Taoiseach Micheál Martin still waffling about bloody songs. This time the use of the Cranberries song Zombie at the Rugby World Cup. Jesus fucking wept. I don't care about what bloody song is sung at a sporting event or in a tent at Electric Picnic. They're songs, for fuck's sake. But I'll bite for a second. Songs can be interpreted in many ways. Songs can be fun to sing even with dodgy or even shit lyrics. Who cares? Sing or don't sing Celtic or Celtic Symphony, however it's pronounced. Sing or don't sing Zombie. Who actually gives a shite when the rest of the country is suffering through real crises that actually have an impact on people's daily lives? Untarnished a waffling about songs while the ordinary people of this supposedly wealthy country are being crucified by the cost of living, crucified by high rents and high mortgage interest rates, crucified by a lack of childcare and other essential services, let down time and time again by a failing health service, but songs! What a monumental waste of everyone's time. We've had the disgusting plan to overhaul disability payments into 3 tiers that paints those in receipt of those payments as scroungers and cheats. And don't pretend it doesn't, it absolutely does. Oh, you're sick, are you? Ah, but you're not sick enough to be off work now, are you? That's the implication here. Get back to work to feed the economy. That's the end game here. I've spoken before on this channel in one of my early videos about how this government doesn't give a flying f*** about people with disabilities or their carers, and this is just more proof. Tory-like divide and conquer strategy from the brain trust in this government. During the pandemic, the pup was paid at a rate of €350 a week, as that was deemed the minimum people could live on. Now, whatever about unemployment payments being less than that to encourage a return to work, disability payments are criminally low compared to that pup figure. That is the reason for the poverty rates amongst the sick, the disabled and their carers. And now they want to add even more hoops for sick and vulnerable people to jump through. Revolting behaviour. But worse again is on Taoiseach Leo Varadkar. Have a listen to this.
If I've seen I, Daniel Blake, I have. I saw it when I was Minister for Social Protection. I think it's a very good film, by the way. I'd recommend it to anyone. It is, of course, one-sided. All of the characters in the film, or at least all of the people in receipt of benefits in the film, are very genuine people, very honest people who need help and have done as much as they can for themselves. There are other programmes like Benefit Street and so on, which would show you a very different picture. And of course, as always the case, the truth lies somewhere in between. That's the real world we live in. But I do want to say this.
Benefit Street. That's where Leo Varadkar's mind goes when asked about people on benefits. A show that he could easily have been the mascot of with his welfare cheats cheat us all sign. What do you say to that level of disdain? Oh, but he said the truth was somewhere in the middle. Sure. That's the damage mitigation line, the plausible deniability line, and nothing more. Disgraceful comments as usual from a serial offender. How can you look at those comments and the many others like it and not draw the conclusion that Leo Varadkar despises those less well off than himself and believes them to be spoofers? Unbelievable. The man who leads the country adept only at causing division and strife and punching down. But that isn't even the worst of it. Oh no, not even close. Temple Street. Spinal surgeries. Now, if you only get your news from RTE, you might not know much about this, because RTE seem allergic to anything more than a cursory glance. But thanks yet again to the ditch, this story has been dragged into the light for all to see. And while the ditch may not be getting the recognition and plaudits they deserve from most other parts of the media, at least the other big TV station here hasn't been ignoring the story like RTE have. Have a look at this clip from The Tonight Show on Virgin Media. Be warned though, it is a very tough watch.
In that operation, the springs were inserted into my client. Those springs were obviously non-medical grade devices bought from a company for maybe €5 from the UK. Outrageous stuff. About a month later, the wound got infected and my client had to come back for surgery into the hospital and had debridement surgery. About a month after that, my client's parents noticed a lump in her back. They brought her to Temple Street Hospital. They were told by a consultant there, these things happen, nothing to see here. They went back home. The next morning, the springs that were inserted broke through my client's ribs and metalwork or the springs broke through her skin. They then brought their child immediately to hospital where it became a struggle up in Temple Street to have her seen to. In fairness to the consultant involved, he did insist upon there being an operation quite quickly. And that was the start of multiple operations, I think 6 subsequent operations that year. I suppose if your viewers could know the effect on my client, the child, she has missed most of her school year. the classroom into which, when she is in school, the classroom has had to be altered. There has to be a special mattress so that she has to lay on the mattress because of the sores on her back. She is a changed child. She rarely talks or interacts. As for my client's parents, I should say, I suppose imagine when you feel that your child, who you love very much, is handed over to surgeons and you feel that she's been used as a guinea pig. Imagine then not knowing what the future holds for your child. Imagine not feeling that you've been kept informed by the CHI and others, and they're very angry.
What do you say to that? How do you react to something like that? What words are enough? Harrowing, appalling, traumatic. Even those words fall far short of the true horror. That poor girl and her family, and the others like her. What can you say? What type of country have we built that not only allowed this to happen, but allowed the whistleblowers to be pushed aside and ignored, and allowed this to be hidden in the shadows until finally real journalism thrust it into the spotlight? How has this happened? What has Ireland become? Utterly reprehensible. Every system failed here. Every safety check, every facade of accountability, every step along the way was a failure to protect these children. The whole story is enough to make your stomach turn, enough to make you sick with disgust. I think it goes without saying that there needs to be a full and transparent inquiry into this with actual consequences for anyone along the chain who stood by and allowed this to happen, not least of all for the so-called doctor who felt it right to experiment on these children. This is quite frankly criminal behaviour, and if it is somehow not criminal under Irish law, then it bloody well should be. Child abuse is what it is. Minister for Health Stephen Donnelly has practically gone into hiding over the issue. He was in the States when the story broke, and instead of coming back to deal with the fallout and try to get a handle on the situation for the sake of the victims in this ordeal, he decided to stay put, and was even backed up in that decision by the three coalition leaders. Absolutely deplorable behaviour, and another who should feel the consequences here. But we come back to Ireland's motto that I mentioned earlier: zero accountability. Does anyone believe that anything of note will happen here other than an apology to the parents and perhaps some form of redress or compensation? This scandal, and even that word doesn't do the situation justice, should be the end of this government. Donnelly and others seemingly knew about it months ago and have since suffered amnesia, it seems. This should see Donnelly resign in disgrace, but will it? Not a hope. Add everything I've just mentioned together and it paints an altogether bleak picture of the Ireland we all live in. This government are failing at every juncture, and yet they are still there, still riding that gravy train without an ounce of worry, because there is zero accountability, just like they intended. Successive Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael governments have seen to it that accountability is merely a word in the dictionary that doesn't apply to the powers that be here in Ireland, and the less well off, the poor, the sick, the children, they are all fair game to these absolute leeches. A shred of humanity is all that it would take for a resignation here, and yet there is none to be found. Full employment and a healthy economy, that's the defence you'll hear of the current coalition. That's all their defenders have. Massaged employment figures and an economy that has put all its eggs into one basket again. The funding isn't the problem here. We have a massive surplus. The money is there. The problem is that this coalition don't want to spend it on those who need it most. They don't care about those in need, and the longer they stay in government, the more people will be added to that in need category as people just run out of road. And in the meantime, we'll continue to be gouged at the pumps and at the tills. We'll continue to see chronic underfunding of vital services while the government feign ignorance at the cause. We'll continue to see crime get worse as there are no consequences. We'll continue to see homeless records broken. We'll continue to hear politicians waffle about sideshows and distractions. We'll continue to hear of horrific scandals in our health service. And as sure as the sun will rise, we will hear Leo Varadkar punch down again and again the absolute state of this country. So what do you think? Are you as angry as I am? Is there anything I've missed? How much longer do you think this government can last? Or will they just brazen it out, as they always do? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can now buy me a coffee, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you who already have. You can also follow me on Twitter for my real-time reactions. Until next time, slán go fóill.